Welcome, friends, to another mobile edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. You know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Today, I want to talk to you about the probable cause affidavit we saw last night. Bryan Kohberger transported by Pennsylvania State Police plane with the U.S. Marshals, with the folks from Idaho and Moscow and the state police in Idaho. They transported him back 10 plus hours by plane. We knew that once he was brought into the Latah County courthouse, that the probable cause affidavit would be released, and they did it. They released it, and wow, what a whammy of information, a plethora of information. My head is is exploding here because so much is revealed in the 19 pages. But before we get into it, I want to say a special thank you to you, the subscribers, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the folks who positively engage, and all of the great replay viewers and folks who leave comments down below, and the super thanks people who leave super thanks. I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate that. By a show of hands here, who enjoyed the stream last night with Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick? I thought it was a great genealogy forensics live stream. And while that was all going on, Bryan Kohberger was in the air on his way back to Idaho. Connie, thank you for becoming a channel member. I greatly appreciate it. Agati, thank you for being here. Laura Croft, thank you for being here. Alicia B, show last night was brilliant. I thought it was unbelievably, even though it was way beyond my knowledge base when it comes to forensics, like that's not my thing. I love it, and I think it's fascinating. But I was way out of my league with those two, with Ed Wallace and Dr. Fitzpatrick. It was just unbelievable. So let's talk about today. Let's talk about what's going on today in Latah County. We found out in the probable cause affidavit, amongst a whole treasure trove and plethora of other things, one of the surviving roommates heard crying, and then a man's voice saying words to the effect, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," on the night of the murders. This opens up the floodgates of, wait a minute, hold on. Didn't we get a 911 call at about noon or a little bit before noon on Sunday morning on the 13th? Coma say what? One of the roommates in this probable cause affidavit stated to an investigator that a figure, she opened her door for the third time after she heard crying and saw a figure clad in a black clothing and a mask that covered the mouth and nose walking towards her. I'm telling you, when Ed Wallace and I went over the affidavit this morning, I was in my office and things were going on all over the place. But when I heard this part of this, I was just like, whoa, what is happening here? But what we also learned in the probable cause affidavit is that surveillance footage from an adjacent home picks up the suspect, alleged suspect here, innocent until proven guilty, Bryan Kohberger. Surveillance footage picks him up, DNA on a knife sheath, which we now know from the probable cause affidavit, it is a K-bar U.S. Marine Corps knife sheath. Sheath was left behind at the murder scene with the defendant's DNA on it and a latent shoe print left at the scene. I want to tell you, Ed Wallace and I said from the beginning, ATS News, great to see you. Thank you for joining. Ed Wallace said it from, I said it from the beginning. Princess Mitch, Heidi Zip, Robin Roach, thank you everybody for being here. I'm just trying to do some speed stuff here. Tara Ellis, thank you, thank you, thank you. We said from the beginning that the forensics and the science would solve this case. Bryan Kohberger might have been a smart guy going to school, but he was a dumb criminal. And criminals of all different levels of education make mistakes. You can't murder 4 people in 2 different locations and not make a mistake. Okay, latent shoe print. Now, not even to mention the phone records. His phone records from AT&T, as per the probable cause affidavit, put him, and it's compelling, the mountain of evidence forensically and electronic computer forensics. We haven't even heard about that computer tower that they took out of his Pullman apartment. We haven't even heard about that computer tower yet. And trust me, that's coming to a theater near you. That's coming soon to a theater near you. Uh, Magical Mary, thank you for the $10 super chat. Nobody's judging anybody here. You're not getting that from me. What I'm saying is this is groundbreaking information. And I'm glad that you brought that up. She says, or he or she says, Magical Mary, I'm assuming she, she says, please don't judge your roommate. We don't know how we would react in the situation. We don't know the whole story. Example, she could have passed out. I said that from the beginning, and thank you for that super chat. Nobody's used to, and if you go back to some of my past videos, nobody's nobody should be used to seeing somebody murdered, no less their friends, or seeing a dead human body inside their dwelling, their home, their place where there's supposed to be peace and safety and tranquility. So when you're faced with something like that, I said it. I said it weeks ago that if somebody was to witness a dead human body, no less your best friend or people you room with, you live with, you're either going to freeze, as it says in the affidavit that she froze, or you're going to pass out, and or both. So let me say this, for all the people that are out there that may or may not go and start attacking the surviving roommates, refrain from that. We have this perp in custody. Don't judge people based on how they acted in a very, very stressful situation. I have a little piece that I want to play for you from court today. This is Bryan Kohberger's first appearance. This is the arraignment on the charges of all counts that were brought forward to him. What I want you to pay attention before Josh plays this, and thank you to Law and Crime Network for allowing me to play this. Appreciate everybody over there, Addie and the whole crew, Antoinette Levy, and Jesse and the whole crew. Lisa Lockwood's tied into Law and Crime Network too, and they're all good friends of mine. Take notice of Bryan Kohberger's smile that he lets to right here to his blonde female criminal defense attorney appointed by the court. Just take notice of how he smiles at her and how he smiles at the judge. Josh is getting it all set up and tweaking it to get the best possible quality. Let's let this roll. I'm going to let this play for you guys, and we'll come back for some commentary. By the way, stick around to the end of this because hold on, Josh, hold on. Stick around to the end of this because tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Andrea Burkhart, she's a lawyer, Burkhart Law from the state of Washington. She has her own YouTube channel. She's a defense attorney in the state of Washington, an experienced trial lawyer, and appellate litigator. She is going to come and join me and Ed Wallace tonight to go over every aspect of the affidavit, and we're going to talk about the death penalty. We're going to talk about the law in the state of Idaho. She practices and has her law practice and all of her business that she conducts in the state of Washington, which is right next to Idaho. So she's going to come on. It's going to be an informative live stream. As we always do, we're bringing you the professionals. And Pete Krusco is a former prosecutor in the Queens County District Attorney's Office. Pete Krusco is going to also join us. So we're going to have an all-star lineup of 2 attorneys. One was a former prosecutor. We're going to get each side of how the defense can go at this and also how the prosecutor should go at this. So let's let this play, and then we'll see. Keep notice of Bryan Kohberger, what he does as soon as he comes through that door and makes eye contact with his defense attorney, and then the judge. And then let's listen in. There it is.
All right.
Please be seated. We are on the record in the Second Judicial District, Latah County. This is the Magistrates Division of District Court. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger, cause number CR 29222805. Mr. Kohberger is present in court. He is in custody. He is appearing with his attorney, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for initial appearance. Mr. Kohberger, I am going to advise you of the rights that you have in this case. I am going to go over the criminal complaint with you, and then we're going to discuss setting the matter for further hearing. You have the following rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to the presumption of innocence. That means the state bears the burden to prove that you are guilty of this offense beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to a preliminary hearing. A preliminary hearing is a probable cause hearing. At that hearing, the state must establish that more likely than not, these felony offenses were committed and you were the one that committed the felony offenses. You have a right to have that hearing within 14 days if you remain in custody. If you are bound over at that preliminary hearing to district court, if the court finds probable cause, you would be bound over to district court. And at that time, you can enter a plea of not guilty, and you can have a jury trial set within 6 months of your appearance in district court. At both your preliminary hearing and your jury trial, you have the right to confront and question any evidence or witnesses called against you. Call witnesses on your own behalf and compel witnesses to be present and testify at the state's expense. You have the right to be represented by a lawyer. If you cannot afford one, one could be appointed to represent you based upon your financial need. You also have the right to appeal any conviction in your case. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
I am now going to go over the criminal complaint with you. Count 1 of the criminal complaint charges you with the felony offense of burglary. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder in violation of Idaho Code 18-1401 and 1403. The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is not less than 1 year in prison, no more than 10 years in prison, and or a $50,000 fine or both. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 3 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonsalves, a human being, by stabbing Kaylee Gonsalves, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, 4004. Again, the maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is death and or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 4 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Xana Kernodle, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. Again, the maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 5 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died, in violation of Idaho Codes 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. And again, the maximum penalty for this offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
And Mr. Kohberger, would you like to represent yourself, hire a lawyer, or see if you qualify for court-appointed counsel?
I have court-appointed counsel.
Court has reviewed your application for attorney at public expense. I do find that you are indigent and do qualify for court-appointed counsel. I will appoint Ms. Taylor to represent you in this case. Ms. Taylor, have you had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Kohberger about speedy preliminary hearing and setting this matter?
Your Honor, I have. We would ask the court to set the status hearing in a week or two to make a final determination.
Okay. And Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, are you in agreement with that?
That's fine with the state, Your Honor.
I will go ahead and set this matter for a status hearing then on the calendar on January 12th at 10 o'clock a.m. We will make sure notice is sent, and then Ms. Taylor, do you wish to argue bail at this time?
Your Honor, I would like to ask the court to consider setting a bond. Mr. Kohberger right now is on a no bond hold, but it's a limited request as I don't have enough information. We are new to the case. We haven't reviewed very much in the way of information about the case, and we have just done our own work on the case. But we would want the court to know that Mr. Kohberger has a good family that stands behind him.
And Mr. Thompson.
The state's position is that Mr. Kohberger is not entitled to bond in this case. The charges, as is noted on the arrest warrant itself. Under Code 19-816, 19-2903 both specify that given potential illness in this case, there's no right to bail. Then was arrested 3,000 miles away across the country, where his family is. We ask that he remain in custody. No bail.
At this point in time, pursuant to Idaho Criminal Law 46B and Idaho Code 19-816 and 2903, I am going to leave the bail set at this case as no bail at this point in time until I have additional or further information at a later date and time. So with that, then Mr. Kohberger, you will be remanded in custody and remain in custody on the no bail pending further proceedings in this matter. Is there anything further in the case then for today, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is asking for no contact orders for various family members of the deceased and also for the surviving roommates. I've spoken briefly with Ms. Taylor. She indicated there's no objection.
Ms. Taylor, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
So So I will go ahead and issue those no contact orders. So I do have a no contact order then for the named individual of Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funk, as well as the family members and Mr. Chapin, the family members of Ms. Kernodle, excuse me, yes, Mr. and Ms. Laramie, Mr. Mogan, Ms. Cheeley, and then a number of members of the Gonzalez family. Those specific names will certainly be provided to you, Mr. Kohberger, by way of being provided notice of these documents. You'll get a copy of these no contact orders. What you do need to be advised of and what will be in this no contact order is you are prohibited from having any contact with them whatsoever. You cannot contact them through third person in writing or by any electronic means. You cannot Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, use the phone to communicate with them or otherwise any form of communication in direct or indirectly with them. You cannot engage in any conduct that would harass, stalk, threaten, use, attempt to use, or threaten to use any physical force or violence upon them or place them in reasonable fear of bodily injury. Cannot go within or knowingly remain within 300 feet of their person or their home, workplace, or any other place where they might be. There are no exceptions to these orders, and if you do violate these orders, it is a new misdemeanor offense. It is punishable by up to a year in jail and or a $1,000 fine or both. At this point in time, due to being in the magistrate's division here, at this juncture, I am going to issue the no contact orders for a period of 2 years. And then if it needs to be modified or changed by additional judge, it can be done so at that time. Is there anything further, Mr. Thompson?
Very good.
Anything further, Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. All right. So as you see there, no bail, murder times 4 he stands accused of. No judge or anybody in their right mind is going to release this defendant on any type of bail. The no contact order, that is as standard gets. Basically, she said that there's to be no contact with any of the victims' families or any of the extended family. So he cannot email, send messages of any electronic means, or write any letters to any of these families for a period of 2 years, and it would be extended out. Next court date, I believe, is the 12th, and that's just a short court date. But tonight, 9:45, I have already set the live stream. We're going to have Andrea Burkhart from Burkhart Law. She's going to be joining Ed Wallace and I as we break down the affidavit and the charges. We're going to ask the tough questions. Again, I'm going to ask you, my good friends and family and the community here on Crime Time with DutyRon, to go over to DutyRon.com and put questions in for Attorney Burkhart and also Attorney Carrasco. He is a former prosecutor. He's going to join us tonight. It's going to be Ed Wallace, myself, and these two great attorneys. They're going to be answering the tough questions. 9:45 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, Princess Mitch. Let me say hello to a couple of people. Delaney, thank you for being here. Hi, Crime Time with Shannon. Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Shannon Pope. Oh, look, 2 Shannons, one after the other. Thank you guys for joining. Again, there's so much to unpack here. Surveillance footage gives the prosecution and the investigators that 4 a.m. to 4:25 a.m. timeline for these murders to have taken place, because I believe that they have video surveillance from an adjacent home of this defendant exiting out the rear sliding glass door on the 2nd floor. So these are all breaking developments that, again, we had zero knowledge of prior to this. the cell phone data, the crime scene evidence at the location, the latent shoe print, the knife, the sheath of the knife left behind the knife sheath. Okay, that's where you holster the knife into the protective handle. But tonight at 9:45, Ed Wallace, myself, and two very fine attorneys will be joining the live stream to break down this affidavit, to break down the Idaho state capital punishment. We're going to talk about the capital punishment law on the books, and we're going to get everything that we can from that. Event data recorder was not in the probable cause affidavit, but remember, they had that trip December 15th, right? He was locked up in a short 2-week period after that. And we could see additional information. And I talked about his Pullman apartment, right? We saw the tower, the computer tower, and numerous items being brought out of the home. So those are things that can be added on to this pile. It could be added right onto the pile. So we're going to get into that tonight at 9:45. Allegedly is here, S. Rodriguez. Kathy from Texas, thank you for joining. Hey, thank you for all of the super chats and all of the new channel members. And the guys and girls who leave super thanks for Ed and I, thank you so much for that. We sent over a $500 donation to the great Dr. Fitzpatrick that was on with us last night. Ed said in the chat, be there or be square. So if you're gonna miss tonight, you're gonna have to watch the replay, because the replay is going to be unbelievable. Josh, if you're still here, could you just plug up that little piece from Brian Enton that we were talking about on Twitter? If you could just plug that up for me, Josh. And I never know if Josh is still here or not, but yeah, there he is. So this was on Brian Enton's Twitter feed. It was 55 minutes ago, and they were talking about the probable cause affidavit. So let's just play a little bit of this and listen to the dialogue back and forth between Brian and the newsroom. This is
joining us. I'm Natasha Zubes here at NewsNation headquarters. We are tracking this big breaking news this morning in the Idaho murder. So many new details coming down. 18-page affidavit. We are hearing from one of the surviving roommates for the first time what she saw that night. DNA found on a knife sheath, trash taken from the Kohberger family home in Pennsylvania, a footprint at that scene as well. Also cell phone information from that night for the very first time. Brian Enton is joining us live right now. And Brian, you just got out of court in Moscow. This is just a couple of miles from the murder scene in the Moscow area. I know you've been poring over this as well. What information are you tracking right now? What is standing out to you in this moment?
Yeah, there's a ton of new information, Natasha. Court wrapped up a little while ago. They allowed cameras inside, but not to feed out live. So we should be posting that video pretty soon. Kohberger was there, his first time appearing in court in Idaho. It's pretty quick and standard. They read him his charges. Bond was denied. The defense, he has a public defender here, asked for a bond. And the prosecutor argued, like, no way, we shouldn't have a bond. We found this guy 3,000 miles away from here. And the judge said no bond for now until she gets more information. So that was the latest from the hearing. But you mentioned it, this 19-page. I'm still going through it. I read through it once, but it's like so detailed.
I know.
And I was reading it on my phone, waiting to get into the hearing. So I printed it out. I'm like going through every word now. But there's so much new information in this new probable cause affidavit.
Absolutely. Can I ask, what was Kohberger's demeanor? Because this is the first time that you were actually in that courtroom with him, looking at his face. What did you notice?
Yeah, so it was the first time I saw him in Idaho. I saw him in Pennsylvania. Gosh, was that the day before yesterday? Right. He's very serious. He he's getting his PhD in criminology, and you can tell, like, he appears to really know what's going on. Like, he never has any questions. He nods at the judge throughout. He always says yes or no right away when she asks questions. Like, you get a vibe like he understands the court system. And he's just sort of a stone cold face. He didn't really look at the audience at all today. The people sitting, the victims' families were in the front row right in front of us, which was awful because they were just so sad to see. Like, they went through and read all the charges, so they read the names of the victims, and like when they read Kaylee Gonzalez's name, her mom just broke down crying. And Kohberger never looked back or anything like that, never looked at any of us. In Pennsylvania, his parents were there in Pennsylvania, but they weren't at the hearing today in Idaho. In Pennsylvania, he did make eye contact with his parents and sort of nod at them. But today, not any eye contact with anyone except for the judge that I could tell.
That and I mean, of course, so emotional for the families, and I know that you've been in touch with them as well. Let's break this down piece by piece, because there is, as we said, a lot of information, new information this morning. Let's start with what we're hearing from the surviving roommate. One of the surviving roommates describing what she witnessed that night. She says that she saw the killer. This was interesting. She said she opened her door. She heard crying. She saw a figure clad in, quote, black clothing and a mask covering the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She describes that figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, athletically built with bushy eyebrows. Apparently, he walked past her. She was standing, quote, frozen in a frozen shock phase. He went towards the glass door in that house. She locked herself in her room after seeing the man. She said she did not recognize him. And investigators placing the time frame of those murders between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Bryan, it's striking. This is the first time that we are hearing any sort of testimony or any sort of report from one of the surviving roommates in that house.
Yeah, this I did not see coming. We haven't gotten, we've gotten some leaked information and sourced information that we've been able to get. Some of it that we didn't even report because we were just waiting for the affidavit to come out. I didn't see this coming. The fact that one of the roommates saw the killer, like you just described it, the mask. She also said that she heard crying, heard the dog barking at one point. There's a lot of questions right now because you'll remember, Natasha, the police weren't called until the next morning,
right?
In late morning. So if she saw all of this, a lot of people are wondering, like, why didn't she immediately call 911? Of course, like, she may have just been totally like shell shocked, frozen. I mean, I can't even imagine being in that situation.
Yeah, we went over this before, guys.
He was going to come back, but it is very interesting to think about the fact that we didn't know that she was even awake.
Right.
And
I wanted
that she saw all of that.
I wanted to follow up with you on that, Bryan. And for reference, we are talking about page 4 of this affidavit. I believe that our viewers can see it on screen. I do want to point out that we can see comments. You are joining us live right now as we're doing this live stream. So if you have any questions,
all right,
please
Josh,
go ahead and
you can
post
pause
them.
it now.
We'll try our best.
So I wanted to play that initial part of it because it was what we just talked about. And what makes this thing so over the top is that we were all led to believe that they slept through this event, right? But we come to find out that, in fact, they did not sleep through this event. They, one or, in the affidavit, it says just one, right? One of the roommates actually had an encounter and he walked right past her as per the writing in this probable cause affidavit. All right, we're going to get into it fully tonight. So I want you guys to, again, we're going to direct you guys from this live stream to tonight's. Thank you, Josh. I was trying to get rid of that. We're going to direct you from this live stream here to tonight's scheduled live stream. Again, we're going to have 2 attorneys, possibly a third attorney come and join us. We need to talk about this and have an intelligent conversation. We'll get as much information. What I'm asking you guys to do, and thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Black Heavyweight says, you guys have an awesome channel. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate the super chat. Send the questions for our criminal defense team that's going to come on with us tonight. It's a former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. We're going to have a show for you guys tonight. Send in those questions and label it questions for the attorney. Keep it pertaining to the probable cause affidavit. We want to talk about Idaho state law under the capital punishment. There was no talk at this court appearance about capital punishment. I know that there's going to be a time and place for that. It's going to be going forward. We'll ask those questions. When are we going to hear a conversation from the courts or the prosecution, if they're going to try this case under the capital punishment law on books in the state of Idaho. So we'll see how that all goes. So I hope each and every one of you have a great day. I got to get back into the office. I'm wearing my Gabby Petito Foundation shirt. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but these hoodies are available on Gabby Petito Foundation website. That's where I got it, the Gabby Petito Foundation, and it's a hoodie. So it's got a hood. It's nice and warm, and it's comfy. So again, guys and girls, thank you so much for joining this live interactive broadcast. Tonight, 9:45 p.m., Ed Wallace, myself, and a couple of seasoned attorneys will be on, going over the affidavit, going over the charges, and talking everything Bryan Kohberger and this case. I'll see you guys tonight at 9:45 Eastern. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon. And thank you for watching the replays. As I always like to end these things, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially these families of these 4 victims. They need strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Let's send it out to them, and let's get behind our prosecution team and see a successful prosecution of this alleged murderer. Peace and love from DutyRon. Take care.